Hi, everybody. This is Peter Schiff. This is Wednesday, August 19th, 2009. Well, this morning, Warren Buffett had penned an op-ed in the New York Times. And in that op-ed, Mr. Buffett correctly points out the dangers of a falling dollar and higher inflation and what's likely to happen over the next few years if we don't rein in all of our deficit spending and bring our fiscal house back into order. But the problem with Warren Buffett's op-ed is in the very op-ed where he's warning about the dangers of a weak dollar, of inflation, of too much debt, he is praising the very policies that are creating that problem. He's talking about too many dollars being put into circulation, but he's applauding President Obama and Congress for putting them there in the first place. Apparently, Warren Buffett thinks the way out of debt is to take on more debt. And he's confusing the government's attempts to reflate a busted bubble with getting legitimate economic growth going. He's saying that we have to do whatever it takes to get the economy back. But we're not trying to get our economy back. We're trying to reflate a bubble. Doing what it takes to get the economy back requires the opposite of what the government has been doing. For Warren Buffett to write an article where he says that we needed all the stimulus, we need all the deficits to stop the bleeding, to return the economy to health. But now we need to make sure that we can take away all that stimulus before it does too much damage makes absolutely no sense. You don't want to reflate a bubble and then say we're going to slowly take the air back out of it. The real solution is not to try to reflate the bubble in the first place. It would have been much better had we not printed all this money, had we not run the deficits through the roof. Apparently Warren Buffett thinks that the short-term gains from creating inflation will outweigh the long-term pain of enduring the inflation. And, he's dead wrong. I was on Fox today and I was asked a question, won't the Federal Reserve be able to put on the brakes in time? That inflation isn't a problem. That's the point. They can't put on the brakes. Unfortunately, the time to put on the brakes has long passed. All we can do right now is brace for impact. But the problem is, if we continue to follow in our current course, no one's bracing for impact. It's going to be a total wreck. What we need is to really tackle these problems now. We can't make them worse and then try to tackle the bigger problems in the future. And it doesn't do us any good to have guys like Warren Buffett, who obviously understands the problems inherent in a weak dollar, in all the inflation we're creating, and then try to validate the policies that have already been implemented. Again, there's no difference between what Obama is doing and what Bush did. When Bush inherited a recession from Clinton, we refused to let the market function. We stimulated the economy. We took on more debt. We created more inflation, and now we're have the payback. We're suffering the consequences of that foolish behavior. And here we are doing the exact same thing. And Warren Buffett apparently hasn't figured it out. And there was another article I think today from Bill Gross from PIMCO, again with the same warnings that the dollar is going to go down. There's going to be a lot of inflation. Again, but he has supported all the bailouts. He has supported all of the activity that is creating all the problems for the dollar, that is laying the seeds for all the future inflation that he now finds problematic. And, I saw, one of his partners, Alarian, was on CNBC the other day talking about the fact that it's a foregone conclusion that the dollar is going to go down, it's going to lose value, but reassuring everybody that it's okay, because the dollar is going to lose value in an orderly way. It's going to gradually decline over time. Well, why is that good? Especially if you're a client of PIMCO and you've got all your money in bonds, why is the fact that your investments are going to slowly erode away over time, why is that a good thing? Why is it a good thing for Americans to go bankrupt slowly? I mean, if you're going to lose money, if you're going to go broke, is it a good thing that if the process is orderly? And of course not. I would rather not go broke. I'd rather remain solvent. Now, unfortunately, because of all the bad monetary and fiscal policies of the past, there's no escaping a weaker dollar. The dollar is going to go down. What I want to see is what I want to try to prevent is the dollar from going to zero. I want it to stop falling at some point. And based on what we're doing now, we're simply making the problems for the dollar worse. We're simply ensuring that the dollar's decline is that much more dramatic over time and that inflation is that much worse. You know, the sooner we stop digging ourselves into a deeper economic hole, the sooner we can start digging our way out of it or filling it back up again. But unfortunately, nobody has seemed to figure this out. Even people as obviously smart and successful as a Warren Buffett or a Bill Gross. Also, I wanted to point out, you know, we've talked a lot about the healthcare issue recently. People saw my discussions or my interview. I put interview in quotes on MSNBC. But, you know, I got a firsthand another taste of it. I just got my renewal for my health insurance for Euro Pacific Capital, and it's up 18%. The cost of, you know, the exact same coverage from last year, the increase is 18%. Now that's a phenomenal rate of increase every year. And of course, the broker is saying we should be glad because the average increase is 22%. How can costs go up, you know, 18, 20%, even half that? You know, and remember, this is the biggest recession since the Great Depression. During the biggest economic downturn, when prices should be falling, my insurance costs at Euro Pacific Capital for my employees are up 18% in 1 year. Now, how can anybody think that this system is not broken? How can anybody think that we need major change? And that change is not to get government more involved. That change is not to get more people, more people insured when insurance is driving up the costs. You know, I was listening on the radio today talking about the average doctor or college graduate with a medical degree is graduating with about $120,000 or $150,000 in debt. And they were talking about it's unfortunate because a lot of these very bright graduates are going to cosmetic surgery, plastic surgery, because they can make more money. Well, the prices in plastic surgery are going up at 1/3 of the rate of general medicine. And that's because insurance doesn't cover it. But here you have a situation where not only are costs better contained in plastic surgery, they're not rising nearly as fast, but the doctors are making a lot more money. You know, and even though the doctors are making more money, they're controlling the cost of their services and the products that they're selling or the service they're providing. You know, meanwhile, the doctors who are involved in other areas of medicine that are probably more important, their incomes are not rising, but prices are going through the roof. The system is broken and it needs to be changed. But it doesn't need more of what's causing the problem. It doesn't need more government. We need more market-based forces. And that's the kind of reform that we need. Also, I wanted to make a quick mention of I read on the internet, I mentioned in the last video blog that we just launched the Euro Pacific Capital China Fund, Euro Pacific Capital Halter China Fund, which is now available. And I saw someone on the internet mention maybe this was a contrarian indicator. You know, here the market is declining just as Schiff launches his China fund. Well, first of all, you know, I had the idea for launching this fund when the Chinese market was on the lows. It's just that there's so much red tape. There are so many hoops that the government requires you to jump through that it takes a long time to get a mutual fund off the ground. And so, unfortunately, I mean, for the fund, the Chinese stock market doubled, you know, while we were trying to get the thing launched. But meanwhile, we've had about a 20% correction from the highs. We launched the fund. It's still almost all in cash. We understand that the market went up, and we're trying to put the money to work slowly. But again, China is a long-term play. I'm not looking for people to buy into this fund because they want to get their money out in a year. I mean, nobody should be investing in the stock market if they want their money out in a year. I'm talking long-term. I'm talking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I think over that time horizon, it's really not even going to matter if there's a correction in the Chinese market right now. This is a long-term play. You know, I recently, in response to my last video blog, I had an email from a client because he commented on the fact that I said that over the long run, my clients have been doing well. And he said he begged to differ because he's had an account for almost 15 months and he's still down better than 30%. 15 months is not the long term, especially when you invest right before the biggest stock market decline in world history. You need a long-term perspective before you invest in volatile assets, and stocks are volatile. But the key is to get good dividends so that you can collect income while you're waiting for the long-term appreciation to come. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Remember to go to SchiffForSenate.com and also to listen to my radio show tonight.